So hello, everybody. I hope that you are able to find us here on live. I'm going to try to click on the comments. So just know that during this broadcast, you actually can ask questions. I think there's you have to be logged in, right? Or something like that. And just know that if we don't get to your questions today, then you can always comment below, and then we will get back to any of the questions that you guys have. So, hey, good morning. Welcome to everybody for joining us today. This is one of my guest interviews. You guys, I'm super excited. Zanele, did I say it right? Good. I was so afraid I was going to mess up her name. So we are here this morning, and we actually connected over a women's, it was a seminar series that we did together, and then her and I got to talking, and I was so excited because, and I'm getting chills now, you guys, just talking about this, because this kind of stuff makes me so excited, because we started talking about unlearning things that keep us stuck, and then also thinking about, like, consciously thinking about what we're thinking about and how much power there is in that. So all of the details of how to find her when we get done with this conversation is below in the description. So you know how to find her, you know where to find her on social media, you have her website, all of those things. But introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do, and then we'll get into the good, juicy conversation.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was an amazing introduction. And I think I also got goosies the first time we talked, especially when we got to the thinking about what you're thinking part. But yeah, just for the sake of introduction, my name is Zanele Njapha, and I work as a transitions facilitator. So that basically means that I help individuals and organizations that are going through a range of different transitions. With individuals, it's more life transitions, so a range of different things, whether you're transitioning in your career, whatever it is. But on a corporate workplace sense, it's more of like company mergers, changes in leadership, change in strategy, and I'll sort of facilitate those. But in my past life, I like to say, I used to be a primary school teacher. So wiping noses, wiping other things is all stuff that I'm used to, that I absolutely used to love. But I did make that transition in my work life as well. So change is really a big thing for me. Something that I'm super passionate about, and consistently just helping myself to understand a little bit more. And that's why I love conversations like this, because we get to share a lot more. And I think the important thing about being a subject expert is that you're always learning, and you're always sort of gleaning stuff from everyone else on how best to approach change and one-on-one experiences that each and every person is sort of undergoing. So yeah, that's me. I hope that sort of fits the bill.
Oh, it's perfect. It's perfect. Well, first of all, I love that you used to teach preschool, because I love kids, because they are so full of just why. You know, it's this wonder of like, what they're that space where they really, they believe, like, they believe they can do anything, right? And I feel like we need to get back to that. The other part that I love is that you've done this in corporate America, because I think it's totally different. Like, I tend to go more within the life coaching, so it's a more personal thing for the women that I work with. But I feel like this whole transition, everything in the planet right now is changing, and we need this in corporate too. And one of the things that's been really, like, on my heart a lot lately is, and especially like this last year, my guides and angels have been saying, look, you have to be heart-led. You have to be doing what you love. Now, we need everybody to do different things, right? Like, we need people to do housekeeping. We need people that work in corporate. We need people that work in restaurants. We need all of the things, right? All of the jobs. But what I feel like is, whatever your calling is, you'll have a gift that fits within that. And so, yeah, so one of the things that I'm so, like, passionate about is unlearning this crap that we've been taught. Like, you have to do this, right? Like, you go to college, you get a degree, you do this, especially, you know, here in the US, like, that's the thing, like, that's what you do. And when you break out of that, people are like, oh no, you have to do this, you know? You don't. It's really funny how there's so many things that we should do. And that's, I love when we were talking about the unlearning. So tell me a little bit more about that, with how you work with clients.
Sure. So I think I'll probably just break it down just a little bit more between the coaching clients and then more the corporate clients. But I think the focus really today, I'd love to make on the coaching clients, because I'm sure we've got individuals that are watching that want to really benefit personally from this space. So I think you mentioned something that was so amazing just now about how we often get told who we need to be. And I feel like the journey of life is really that almost coming back to yourself and raising that awareness. And so I often say, especially on an individual level, some of the really key and 3 really key things for anyone to do on that unlearning journey for me, and this is sort of what we work through with clients, is the first would be finding/creating yourself. And the reason why I say slash here is because when I ask people the question, do you think you find or do you create yourself? I'll often get a combination of both. And I think it is exactly that. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on that, Jennifer. But I do think it is a combination of both, because there is so much of us that we're actually just discovering. And the reason why you feel some type of way, as the young people say, about certain things, it's because there's that sense of discovery and a recognition of something that was always there, that's not necessarily new. But the creation part then is, how do I mold it? How do I assist it? How do I support it? And how do I find it? So it is really the combination of both. And that's where I think it's important to start, especially with unlearning. A lot of the time we think, okay, I'm just going to move certain things aside and work from there. But it really is just coming back to what that is and finding what fans your flame and starting from there. And so from that part, then the second would be investing in yourself. In what ways are you willing to put money on the table, so to speak, to say, I'm going to put something down, to invest in myself, to really back this idea that I say I want to sort of carry out with regards to my identity. And then the last one, really, really important, and this one I often have to explain because people go, oh my goodness, you can't be for real. This one is losing yourself or giving yourself away. And this for me is really the purpose behind everything, because unless we live with a greater awareness and with a greater commitment to something that's got much larger longevity compared to us, then we don't unfortunately live lives that are meaningful. And so that one is really about tying yourself to, I often say that everyone is born to get behind a needle. And then you spend your life just moving that needle slightly forward, and then you leave, and then the next bunch of people come in. And so that last part is really about what needle are you going to get behind, so that you can sort of move it an inch or so, and then sort of rest when it's time for you to rest, and then move that journey forward. So I think for me, when I sort of explain that idea of unlearning, those are some of the things that I put forward that help people to go, oh, okay, so I can see how I would sort of peel back those layers and embark on this new journey towards peeling those layers away and then rediscovering the center or the apex of what I know myself to be.
So I love that. So I call that the God spark. I think we all have that divine spark within us that, like, we have a reason to be here. And so, but you're right, we lose that. We totally do. So I see that there's some people on here live with us. I would love if somebody would comment just so that I can see if our comments are actually working today. They usually do, but it was a little bit off getting online this morning. So I just want to make sure that it's working. So if somebody would just say hi and let us know that you're here so that I can see if the comments are coming up. Going back to the 3 points that you made, I absolutely love all of it. I absolutely love it. Okay, somebody is saying hi. So thank you for that. And again, you guys, if you have questions, please let us know. I resonate so much with everything you're saying, and I love that there's so many of us women stepping out finally in this passion of really discovering who we are. And you're right, because we almost have to. A lot of the women I work with, to be honest, when I say, what do you want, or who are you, they have no idea. They're like, oh, I'm so-and-so's mom, or oh, I'm so-and-so's wife, or oh, and I'm like, no, who are you? Like, what makes your heart happy? What makes your heart sing? And we get so used to taking care of other people, which is great, but when you lose yourself in that and you don't know who you are anymore, that's where we're kind of losing that divine part of who we are. So when we can come back to that or go into full surrender, when you're like, okay, I'm going to just trust the divine and see what comes up, which is, where I had to get to be able to do what I'm doing now, right? Like, it was this full moment of like, you know what, God, you did this to me. Like, show me where I'm supposed to go, what I'm supposed to do next, because it's almost like when you try so hard, it almost doesn't work. But when you can come into that place where you rediscover who you are and trust it and believe it, then life seems, it just kind of gets in line, right? Because then you're behind your purpose, you're behind that needle that you're trying to move. You're in that space of what you're actually, your God spark is.
Yeah. And that is so, so profound what you've just said there, Jennifer, because it really brings back this idea of intuition and being led. Funny, we're having this conversation. When I started this year, it was with the intention of leading from the inside out, or living from the inside out. And I think that that's so underrated, especially in the corporate sense and in a lot of our lives, because we're told to think with our heads and live from the outside in and allow the things outside of us to determine where we're going. And I really think that when you allow this almost higher part of you to lead you, and this intuition and this guidance, or your gut, or whatever people are calling it, there's something very profound about that, because when you, like you said, the things you struggle with, or that are a huge struggle, end up not working out at all. And even if they do work out, you find that those are actually not the things that you were after initially in the beginning. And then the other point that you made, that I heard from a friend the other day, who's actually taken her children out of the schooling system, so the conventional schooling system, formal education, and she's just enrolled them into the school where they all go out into the woods and they play and they pick things up, and they've got their own very charismatic curriculum and everything else. And when she had a conversation with me, she said, "Zanele, am I doing the right thing?" Because what happens when it's time for them to go to college? What happens when it's time for them to go to university? And I could really resonate with her, because that's what happened. You almost have this tide between the two worlds situation, where you're going, I understand that this is what I feel, or this is what I know. And then on the other side is, what about society's norms and the identity that I'm supposed to fit into? What then? How do I sort of fit in then? And I think that that's what makes it tricky for me. If you're a person that wants to live more from the inside out, but still exist in a world where not many people are thinking that way and don't necessarily receive you too well, if that's your perspective around it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think even talking about that, like I think the old stigma, there's been this divide between being spiritual and being in your heart space, and and it's like, it's so funny, because don't get me wrong, I love crystals. I have crystals on. I love all of that, but I'm not like I'm not going to sit around and be in own position all day trying to be in my heart space. Like, so I have a friend of mine. Her husband used to laugh, and he said, "You and her, my friend Laura. He's like, you two are the only women that could totally go into a psychic fair or a spiritual fair and totally be great, and then walk into a boardroom and be rocking that as well." And I'm like, I think that's because that's where we need to go. We need to get back into, even if we are in corporate America, or even if we are, in whatever a regular job would be, whatever that regular job would look like, we've got to be doing that again from our heart, because for me, for the last 7 years, but for the last 2 years, especially, and really hardcore the last year, my guides and angels, when I would do my Patreon messages for my clients, it's all about bringing in congruency your heart and your head, so that we become heart-led and that our mind is on board, right? So that we can start trusting our heart more, and not overthinking it, but then also getting our what our thoughts are in alignment with our heart, which comes back to your unlearning, right? When we were talking on our first conversation, we were talking about unlearning. We have to unlearn that it has to be this way, and that we only think about it and we don't feel it, because we've all had that time where we've had that gut feeling, and you just knew that it wasn't what you wanted to do, or wasn't the right thing, and you did it anyway, and it probably didn't turn out so great. Yes. Right?
Yeah.
So we've got to get back to trusting that.
And then just to add to what you've just said, because sometimes it can seem so fluffy, this unlearning term, and people go, okay, I understand that I need to unlearn. So I think one little suggestion that I can make, especially on someone who's still at the initial phases of the journey, because I always say, because there is a neuroscience background to the work that I do, when people go, unlearning is old habits die hard. I often give the perspective that it's not necessarily that old habits die hard, because habits don't actually die. And fortunately, in your brain, nothing ever dies. Everything is there waiting for a trigger. Even that one habit that you haven't done in 9 years, if you trigger it, you can bet your bottom dollar it is coming for you. And so what I always say then is old habits get quieter and quieter. And this quieter and quieter for me really puts across the idea that it's a process. Mm-hmm. It's a process, so you need to be kinder to yourself and understand that when you've broken everything down into those little pieces and those little chunks, you just keep layering and you keep layering and you achieve this step and that's done, and then you keep moving to the next one. And if that doesn't work, you just you keep coming back, and it's this consistent, almost iterative process that you're consistently working on. And so my big suggestion is that patience, but also understanding that if you're on an unlearning journey, don't focus on the unlearning part of it. Don't go, I'm trying to unlearn this, I'm unlearning this horrible thing that I got from my mother, I'm unlearning this habit. Rather focus on where you want to be. What is the thing or the skill or the habit that you want to learn, or even relearn if you want to use that phrase. And rather focus on that, because the way that your brain works is that the neural pathways that you are starting to acquire, if they strengthen enough, will actually cause the older ones to prune. And that's why they say cells that fire together, hardwired together, and all of this neuroscience. The more you work on the thing you want to learn, the thing that used to be your default will no longer be your default, and then this new one will come into place. And I love this phrase that Les Brown often uses, that the pull of the future is stronger than the push of the past. So you want to really dedicate a lot of your attention, your awareness on this new thing that you're trying to bring into your life or into your space, and then leverage that, because the more momentum that you can get into it, the faster those neural pathways can start to form and then strengthen in your brain. But remember, it's never ever going to go away. So it's a process. Even right at the end, when you think it's a habit, it could still sort of backfire on you, which is the sad news.
Right. Well, and okay, so I have to laugh because I grew up in the country, right? So the way that I explain it, when I started doing life coaching, I went and did I got the life coaching certification, I did NLP, and I remember learning about the way that the electrical things fire in your brain and how it creates a pathway. And the way that it made sense to me is it's like when you drive down a dirt road and everybody drives in the same spot, you get those ruts in the road. And that's just where everybody goes because it's easy. That's where the tires go. So you just fall into that. And when you're first starting to try to make a new habit, you've got to pull yourself out of those ruts and drive on a different part of the road. And it's really easy to slip back in, but you can't get frustrated. You've got to go, oh, I just slipped right back into the ruts. I got to pull back out again and get yourself on the other trajectory. So I like to make it very simple. And that was like the dirt road analogy for me was always the best. I'm like, yeah, I just go back in the dirt road again. I got to pull back out of those ruts and drive over here now. And I think it's all about being open to possibility as well. Like really understanding that there's so many limiting beliefs to get through, right? Like, oh, you can't do that, or no, this isn't going to happen. Like there's so many things. Money doesn't grow on trees. We've all been told like some of the base things that we're taught, like and basically it comes down to it's never going to happen, right? So you've kind of been conditioned a little bit to think it's never going to happen, or it's not going to happen the way that you want it to. So you're going to have to go to school and go to college and do all of the things, right? But what if that wasn't true? Right? Like just getting that little seed of what if that isn't true, and then being open to possibility totally changes the way that you can live life and the excitement that can come in. I was actually thinking about it this morning when I was getting ready, and I thought, it's because I was so excited about our like coming on today and having this interview, and I'm like, it's so amazing. If I think back to like 7-8 years ago, I would have never dreamed that this would be my life. And so when I finally allowed myself to open to the possibility and then allowed for that divine guidance to come in, it's amazing. And I'm sitting here going, I would have never dreamed this for myself. This is so much better than what I would have ever allowed myself to have if I would have been going by what I was told and what I knew in my brain. I had to open up to the idea of possibility and be like, okay, what could happen? Like if I follow this divine intuition, it's amazing how much life gets so much better. right?
Yeah,
So,
I strongly agree with that. And I think for me, the game changer thought is very close to what you've just said. It's that idea of possibility and understanding that a lot of and this idea of subjective truth, people fall on different parts of it, but that something is only true for you because it's been consistently said, or there's nothing of the contrary that's presented itself. And if we think about our parents, I mean, my parents used to say the exact same thing to me now, and they still do. This idea of, who do you think we are? Rockefeller, or who do you think we are? It doesn't grow on trees, like you said as well. And it's those ideas that consistently get seeded. And if you think about it as a dirt road that's been traveled so often that it almost tars, and when you understand that concept, that the reason that's your default thought is just because it's been consistently fired over and over again, and that if you were to start a new one, that could also become a default, and that changes, like you said, your entire energy will start to change. And these things reveal themselves in such profound ways that when you see those things, like you said, you just go, oh my goodness, look at what I was able to manifest. Look at what I was able to do, all because I started with that process. And I started off with believing that it is possible and that I can do it. And even if we think it's possible, a lot of the time, the second step is that it's possible for me, because that also comes from this idea of, what do I think of myself? What does my ego self say about me? Maybe that I'm not worthy, or I didn't grow up on the right side of town. And in all of those things, because if you think it's possible, you might be thinking, oh yeah, it's possible for Graham.
Well, they can do it. They can do it. Yeah,
they can do it because their parents are this. They have this environment.
Because they had a silver spoon in their mouth. They could do it because they had the right connections. Like all of those things come into play. It's so true. Yeah.
And so I think that's where the idea of then surrounding yourself with evidence that supports the new belief, or the new way of thinking, or the new way of being is so important. Because an environment, and this is one of the key things that I always talk to my coaching clients about, is set up your environment. Because your environment is one of the biggest ways you can sabotage yourself if you are on an unlearning or a change journey. Because you could be like, okay, so I'm setting myself up to eat less ice cream, but if the road to and from work is lined with ice cream parlors, you are sabotaging.
Go around the block. Drive the other way.
You're sabotaging yourself, because your environment almost needs to support and in a way be rigged in your favor. So think about all of these little things that you can start to set your environment up, leave clues. Fortunately I've got one here. I do this thing where I tie little blue ribbons onto so many of the items around the house, because every time I see that, I go, oh, I remember that this is my motive for the day, or this is my phrase, or this is how I've primed myself today. And for me, it's how you sort of set your environment up to always be there to support you, because you won't always, in the unlearning journey, you won't always have someone who's going to go, hey, remember, you're on that journey, you're trying this. And so you sort of need to be that person for yourself. And that for me is
I love the little blue bow. That was such a great idea, because it's so true. Like here's the thing, right? Like if we're truthful, sometimes this shit's hard. Like, we'll just say it. Like
you say that again.
The transformation part, but I can tell you, it's so worth it. Like and going back to just the little details, like one of the things I can remember that, and this was like everybody I knew. It wasn't like it was just my family or my mom, but it's like as long as we had enough for a gallon of milk, then we were okay. Like we would be fine. We could have food. Like that was the goal. And I'm like, what? At one point, I remember thinking, why would we limit ourselves to that? Why would I say if only I have enough for milk? No, what if I have enough to go spend $25 on groceries and not worry about it? I started in little tiny increments. And then as you do that, and you can do that with anything. Like what if I really believed in myself? What if I thought I was worthy? What if you do that in little tiny increments? You know what? I'm worth this really cute pen at the store that's $2 because it's pretty and it has flowers on it and it'll make me feel happy when I'm doing my work. And then it's like, well, what if I'm worth, buying the organic food because that's what I want? And then you can do it in so many different ways, right? What if I'm worth a really good relationship? what if I'm worth treating myself well? What if I'm worth taking the extra 5 minutes and taking, taking that 5 minutes to pamper myself and do a body scrub before I take a shower, right? Or what if I'm worth the extra half hour to get away from my family and my kids and take a bath by myself, right? So you can, in any kind of thing, any part of your life that you're working on, just start in little increments. You don't have to do it all. It doesn't have to be this boom, big transformation all at once. And I think that's what a lot of the, think about a lot of the big, well-known motivational speakers, right? Like they had some massive, major thing that just changed their life. That wasn't like it for me. It was like little tiny increments along the way that made the changes. So, and with that, like you're going, oh yeah, well, I wouldn't want to have to go through that to be able to get my life to change, because that would have really been awful to go through, right? Like the things that they experience. So you don't have to have this big, it can be tiny little things. It might take a little bit longer, but again, it's totally worth it, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I have a framework that I often use that I'd love to sort of share with everyone, but it's made up of 4 different principles, and I call it the leap framework. So the idea of leaping through your transition, leaping from one place of being to another. And the very first part is something I already did brush up on, but the one that you mentioned is the one I want to emphasize. So the first one is a live vision. And the idea why a live vision is important, and I'd love to just expand on that to say it needs to be alive. And alive means that you can feel its energy. And so that's the first thing. And there's so many different ways to set that up in your own life. And then the E, though, is where I wanted to sort of spend a little bit more time. And the E is easy, edible chunks. And you just nailed it right on the head. It needs to be in little pieces, just like you eat an elephant, one chunk at a time. Break it up for yourself, because when it is too large and overwhelming, your brain will go, oh my goodness, I can't do this. Because what your brain will do when it sees that big vision is it starts to recall all of the other times you set a big vision, and it goes, do you remember the last time what happened that you couldn't do that? What do you think is going to change this time? And so it reminds you of all of those things, only because it's trying to protect you, not because your brain is evil or anything. Yes, because it's trying to protect you. And I think that for me is so important, being able to just break things up into little bite-sized pieces from the bigger ones and sort of funneling them down into something that you can manage on a daily basis in your diary as little tasks that then add up to something bigger that you can then track at the end of the month or at the end of the week. And that's one part that's also really important. It's the tracking. I mean, if you think about yourself at work, we're always tracking the data, tracking the insights. But we fail so often to do that for ourselves. Let's do that for ourselves. If you're trying something new, go back and go, how's it working? I started this on Monday and today it's Tuesday. What do I think? This worked, I tried this, and then when I added this to the process, it didn't work as well. Whatever it is, just consistently go back, track the data and see how that's going. And so the A, as part of the leap, is the acknowledge, announce and appreciate. And this I don't think we do enough, is to celebrate ourselves and then also speak. And understand that when we speak things, we not just give life to them, but we also allow them to sort of keep our words, then keep us accountable to ourselves. So appreciate where you've been, appreciate what didn't go well, and the fact that you're actually making an effort. And this is part of the being good to yourself that I mentioned a little bit earlier on. And then the last one is participation. And numerous amounts of data have gone into this one, show that you and I, obviously above being rational beings, we like to say we're rational thinkers and we're emotional beings, but more than that, we're actually social. We are social in the sense that we're social before anything else. Yes. And sometimes when we understand the best way to change is to change together. That's why building communities around your changes are fantastic, because those are the people that go, hey, remember we're doing this together. Get back up. It's all right. We can do this. Or take a break. It's okay. Let me know when you're ready to carry on again. And that really completes that leaping from one place to another, that participation part of it. I think really, really helps most of my clients to navigate their changes best.
I think so too, because, and especially like when you align with the same like-minded people who are wanting to do the same, and especially when you're getting, like, if you're in that space where this is just something that you're starting to do, if you're trying to make those changes and you stumble or you have a bad day, you need to have somebody in your pocket or in your phone, you know, that you can say, text and say, man, I'm really struggling today. What, you know, can you talk for like 2 seconds? But whoever that is needs to say, look, it's okay. It's just a stumble. Just it's all going to be okay. Or you know what? It's okay that it sucks right now. Give yourself an hour to like be in your feels and then pull yourself back out. Because if you go to somebody who isn't on the same trajectory or doesn't want to make the changes, they're going to say, well, I don't know why you're doing that anyway. Right? And then that's just going to knock you back down. So you want to be very, very careful who, I always tell my clients to be really careful who they share with when they decide I'm going to make this leap and I'm going to start making transformation in my life. I always tell them, look, you don't want to call somebody who doesn't believe that you can have money and talk to them about things about money, because they're going to tell you that you can't do it anyway. So you've got to align with somebody that's in the same, that's why I think masterminds are so good, right? That's why masterminds are so powerful, because then you're in the same energy with other people who are on the same trajectory as you, and they get it and they understand what it's like when it's a hard day, and they understand what it's like to need to push through, and then they understand what it's like when you really just need a break, or you need to say, you know what, it's okay, you have permission to have a sucky day. Like sometimes it just is, right? So when you're in that space, it's not letting you go. You want to be careful not to share with somebody who doesn't get it, because that can knock you off so fast.
People who don't get it. Have you found that on your journey, and if you think about your personal transformation journey or different transitions that you've navigated, that you've had people who just didn't get it, and how did you work through that?
Yes, all the time. And especially, you know, it's always hardest when it's family, but it's like, you're not doing the normal job. And well, how are you going to have a retirement? And how, because it doesn't fit into the corporate scheme or the what a regular, comfortable, safe job would be, right? Like, you still do the same thing. I still have a 401k. I still have an IRA. I still have all of those things in place. You know, we still have life insurance. All of those things that make you feel safe. You know what I mean? Like, so it's so funny when they're, because of, well, generational too, right? Like some of the people that are in generational, they don't understand entrepreneurship, first of all, right? So you've got to be around other entrepreneurs who get it, because it's not the same as a 9-to-5 regular job, right? You've got to do the work to be able to make the income. So yeah, I've totally been up against that. And here's the thing, whenever that happens, they're not trying to bring you down or whatever. They're trying to protect you, even though they don't understand that that's not really what they're doing, right? Like they're trying to they want the best for you. And so they're just doing what they know as well. So it's never a bad thing. It's just a different lens, so to speak. They're just looking at things through a different lens. Different understanding.
It's important for us to understand that as well. Because often we turn around and we're not so kind to those people. And we might tell them to their faces some of the time that they're stumping our dreams and whatever it is. I think you said something so important there. It's that empathy and understanding that they don't do it intentionally because they want to sabotage you, but because they're just trying to protect you. Because for them, what's happened is they've actually seen where some of the red lights are going off. And I think the valuable part to leverage that would then be going back to those people and going, okay, so I understand that you feel like it might not work. What are some of the things that make you feel that way? List those down, go back to your own room and go, okay, so how am I going to work with these stumbling blocks? It's like having that individual in your team that's sabotaging the change process or talking everyone out of it. Using that person and going, okay, so let me know, why don't you think it's going to work? And then using that to sort of set the environment up for the change to actually
happen. And it's so powerful at that point, right? So and I, like, honestly, what's the worst thing that can happen? You just do something else. I mean, if it doesn't work, just do something else. It's not good.
So, yes, rather than not knowing, right?
Right. Like, it's so funny, because honestly, like the old me 10 years ago I would have been like, no, it has to be this way, and I have to know that I'm okay for the rest of my life, right? But now it's like, I've learned that in doing that, we kind of limit ourselves. right? To what we can actually experience, and the beauty and the joy that can come in. And I mean, it's learning about all the things, right? It's learning about mindset. It's learning about trusting yourself. It's learning about loving yourself. It's learning about bringing in the divine guidance or the intuition or the gut feelings and trusting that in a bigger way. And then really, like, that's one of the most powerful things, is what's the worst thing that can happen? Like, and then if that happens, so what? Then you just start over, right? So, yeah, so we have a couple comments. Carrie just said, I love the wisdom in this interview. So, and hi everybody that says hi Dana. It looks like it's so much about trusting it. That's so true, you guys. It's totally true that you've got to trust it. So I don't even know where we are at time. I knew this was going to happen. I try to keep these around half an hour just because I know that everybody's so busy and there's so much going on, but I could just keep on talking with you. So let's go ahead and let's wrap it up. I know that you said you had a free download or something for everybody. So tell us about that. And again, really quickly, guys, all of her information is in the comments, like in the description for this video. So you can find out where to find her website and where to find her social media and all of that. Everything is here. So we'll get ready to wrap this up.
Cool. Aw, it goes by so quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right, so the free guide that I wanted to share with everyone is actually a hacking guide. So it's a little tool that I give to each and every individual who goes, I'm navigating some kind of change or transition in my life, and I really, really just need something that's going to help me. And fortunately for us, we've already talked about that LEAP framework, and what this particular tool does is it breaks each of those down and gives you practical step-by-step ways that you can start to apply them. So I didn't unfortunately go into detail with those, but in that guide, everything is in detail, exactly how you can apply it in your life from today.
I love that. I love that so much. So thank you so much for coming on today and being my guest. I'm sure that we will talk again soon. You guys, don't forget, if you are enjoying this interview, if you do have questions, just drop them in the comments below, and Zanele and I will both look at it later and make sure that we try to answer any questions that come up. Again, all of her information is below. And for those of you guys that are... So you're a beautiful soul. Thank you for being here. Oh, I love that. So anyway, lots of love, guys. Really quick before I go, I am launching Divine Alchemy Academy on the 1st. So if you're interested in that, shoot me a message and I will talk to you guys all soon. But lots of love for now, and we'll see everybody soon.
Thanks, Jen. Bye.